So, political organization this week. And when we think about political organization, I want you to keep in mind while we're talking about it and while you're doing the reading that all societies face these three challenges. And the first is support the well-being of its members. So all societies, no matter how big or how small, have to do this. The second, again, no matter how big or how small, is maintaining cohesion among its members. And then the final challenge that all societies face is maintaining a socioeconomic balance with other societies. And so when we think about political structure, when we think about political organization, we always need to keep these three challenges in mind and understand that, like everything else, culture is integrated and practical, and political organization will be structured in order to meet these challenges. And I don't have a ton to add to this chapter in the book. I know that this chapter covered a wide range of things. And so my comments here are really more on what to really focus your attention on. So when we think about this breakdown of bands, tribes, chiefdoms, and states, this has been done in a way that archaeologists, this is the way they have described the political organizations in societies. So this is how they have discussed how the decisions are made, who has the authority to make them, how will rules be enforced, and so forth. This is not an evolutionary scheme. Societies don't start out as bands and then progress to tribes, then to chiefdoms, and so on. What these are stable ways of keeping the society functioning and preventing social unrest. So again, meeting those challenges I just mentioned. Many band-level societies function very well and stay at that level for many generations. Many people make the mistake of thinking of this as a scheme that gets better and better until societies get to the perceived best, or the level of state. But really, what's best is what's defined by what works in a certain situation. And remember, when back to this idea of subsistence, certain subsistence strategies will be better suited for certain types of political structures. And so these all go hand in hand. You don't necessarily need to know the details about different hypotheses about the rise of the state, but you do need to know differences in power, in authority, in social class and position that are associated with bands, tribes, chiefdoms, or states. So definitely keep that in mind. When we talk about social control, the chapter also deals with this to some degree. When we're talking about this, what we're talking about is how societies encourage people to follow cultural norms. Many of the types of organizations that the book discusses are also groups that give people a sense of belonging and solidarity in a society. So, belonging to an age set or a corporate lineage help people learn, develop, and make social bonds with other members of society in a positive way. The book talks about these things as things that control behavior, which they often do, but often they do it by instilling a sense of belonging and a commitment to others and people. People in a lineage or age set often feel a fierce loyalty to one another, and this in turn inspires them to do their best or to behave well because they have a strong conviction to do so, but not because they necessarily feel the threat of negative sanctions if they don't conform. One thing the book doesn't really cover well is social control versus cultural control. Social control refers to the rules or institutions in a society that regulate behavior. And social control is external to the individual. Cultural control refers to the deeply held beliefs in the mind of an individual that regulate behavior. And cultural control is very much internal to the individual. Often the two work together. For example, the law says you cannot kill someone. And this is social control. It's an external rule, punishable by prison time and other kinds of punishments. However, there is also a cultural control in that most of us think it is morally wrong to kill people. So even if the law was repealed tomorrow and suddenly it was totally legal for us to kill each other, most of us probably wouldn't change our behavior. We would still think it was terribly wrong because of our deeply held beliefs, and that's cultural control. Sometimes the two don't line up as well. Some laws are frequently broken, like the speed limit. The social control says you aren't allowed to drive faster than the posted speed, but most of us probably don't feel horribly guilty because we did it. Another example where they don't line up might be something like abortion. The law says that it's okay, but for many people, they have a deeply held belief that it's wrong or immoral. So even though it's technically legal, they are opposed to it. Other people have a strongly held belief that it is okay. The cultural control is the same for everyone, but some people in our society would consider it, while others never would, because their cultural controls are different for the subject. Breaking the social controls is usually punishable by defined sanctions, such as fines, jail time, and so on. Breaking a cultural control is not usually punishable, but may lead to deep feelings of guilt or to informal social sanctions like gossip or snubbing. And really, surprise, that's all I have to say about this particular chapter. The book really, in this case, does a nice job. Not that it does a poor job on other chapters, but it's very thorough with regard to this chapter. And there are a lot of terms, and I really narrowed it down to these terms as kind of must-know terms, but don't neglect the other ones in favor of these. As always, if you have any questions, shoot me an email.